So just I guess to start, how would you describe the past year or so? Not competing, being out, COVID, everything that's gone on in your life, which is a lot. How would you describe the past year?
Roller coaster. Because I had my daughter as well, which was huge up, but then have to get neck surgery and COVID, huge down, and obviously with everything that's happened in the world, it's been a time to be alive and see a part of, or be a part of it. Like I don't think there'll be anything else, and hopefully there's nothing else in our lives that's this dramatic. Um, but yeah, I mean it's really shown me that I'm doing what I want to do, and I'm super happy to be back doing what I'm doing. Absence makes the heart grow fonder, and I'm so happy to be back doing what I love doing and getting ready to you know, give her my all next Saturday and show the world what I'm capable of.
Yeah. I'm sure you've talked about this at length before, so don't go into too much detail. But for those that don't know, why haven't you fought since your debut back in September of 2019?
Well, I was supposed to fight on one of the cards that was canceled, but just actually the year of my debut before it, I was in a car accident, and I had a neck injury, and that ended up getting a lot worse from inactivity when COVID hit. So the only thing kind of keeping me together was that I just kept going, and I was staying strong, and then about 2 months into not doing anything, my neck injuries, they kind of blew up. All the symptoms got way, 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 way worse. Got an MRI, I tried to rehab, it didn't work. Ended up having to get disc replacement surgery in my neck, rehab from that, and then finally, I was cleared to bring in contact. So I had to get back, and then I had to get back into fighting shape, which is something I really haven't been out of in the last 10 years until this neck injury, and then start asking for a fight, and that's what I did. So I came into January. It was kind of a month or so after I was cleared for contact training, and so I came here and just hit the ground running, and I trained hard as I could for a month until I felt like I was ready to sort of take a fight, and then started asking and just kept training like in my head I had a fight booked, and that's why I took this one short notice just because I've been planning on that. Like in my head, I've been in camp since the end of January, so it's kind of short notice, kind of not. The
Yeah.
opponent is short notice, but in my head, I've been going like I'm going.
So the car accident that you mentioned, that happened in January of 2019. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
it's right at the beginning of the year.
And so as far as what happened, like short-term injuries, like how bad was it? Can you kind of just like walk me through what happened in that accident a little
Yeah.
bit?
So, what happened is basically I was going to merge onto the highway, and then there's a meridian, a concrete meridian separating it, and then a painted meridian that went out. And the guy thought that after the concrete meridian, which is the shoulder of the highway, not the merge lane, he just pulled into that right in front of me as I was coming up the highway speeds, and I just smashed right into him. So my head, like I braced, the airbag went off, and my head snapped forward, but I didn't hit the airbag because I was strong enough to hold my head in position, which was probably what caused the damage to my neck. If I was weaker, my head would have probably smashed the airbag. My neck probably would have been better, but I probably would have been concussed. So, it's kind of a trade-off. But anyway, so the next day I started getting pain down my arm, numbness in my fingers, and I rehabbed it over a month. The symptoms went down to 10% of what they were after the car accident, and they just carried on. The doctors thought, well, you're doing well. Like it's gotten better. And I was training. It felt good. Like continue on. And then when I stopped training, about 2 months into quarantine, like when everyone was sort of in quarantine, my symptoms went to like 10,000% of that pain
Wow.
over a course of about 5 days, and I was in agony. I felt like my arm was like being held in the fire while being electrocuted. Fingers went completely numb. Like painkillers did nothing. I couldn't sleep for weeks. The only thing that was giving me any relief was neck traction when you pull on your head. So I was going and having sitting in like a traction table in a clinic almost every day. I had a neck hammock, and I was just basically living in that thing. Like I really couldn't do anything.
Wow.
And I tried to rehab it. Didn't like the pain got marginally better, but I started getting weakness, or I had weakness, I guess, that I didn't notice because I was in so much pain. as the pain started, I started to manage the pain a bit better. I started trying to rehab it, and there was just no strength. I couldn't do a push-up. I could barely, holding my head up just on my shoulders hard. Like that was getting worse. So the surgeon's like, well, that can become permanent. So it's time to do surgery. So, the surgeon I had was awesome. A lot of surgeons wanted to do a fusion, because it's kind of the standard. I did not want a fusion because fusions lead to usually more surgeries, especially when you're a very active person, because they lock the one vertebrae in place and the other vertebrae have to make up for the lack of movement there, and then they end up usually going, and you got to fuse them. Where the artificial disc allows the neck to move the way it's supposed to, takes the force off the other discs, and has a huge drop in follow-up surgeries after. So surgery went great, feel good. I've been testing it hard, and I've had no issues.
Great. Well, I want to go back again to your fights in 2019. Like, you had 3 fights after that accident, and since then, like those were the 3 fights you've had. You haven't fought since then. But so just to sort of clarify, like, you had those 3 fights and you didn't even know that your neck was as injured as it was, or did something happen after that?
No, nothing happened. I didn't know how bad it was. Like, I mean, so I kind of say, so if after the car accident, we had a level of about 100% intensity of my symptoms, it went down to about 10%. They might come from like 20 and down to 10. And the doctors thought it was probably just muscle spasm. When I trained, it actually got better. Any kind of physical activity, and it got better. It would get worse if I was like, had a few days off and did nothing, then it would start to bug me more. But the more I moved, the better it felt. So they're like, okay, it's probably just the muscle that's caused, like, putting pressure on the nerve. It's probably just when you take time off, it's probably starts to tension up and cause that issue. So we just carried on. They're like, if the number one thing you can do if you have an injury is if something's making it feel better, you keep doing that thing. And for me, training kept making it feel better. And fighting in the fight, I mean, I could go into a fight with a broken leg, I probably wouldn't even notice. So that was never an issue. Felt fine in the fight. And it wasn't really, like I said, until I had this period of everything was closed. All I could do was go for runs and do push-ups and stretch at home. And for me, that's not nearly what I'm used to.
Yeah.
And that's where I think what probably happened is the muscles started to get a little weaker. When the muscles get weaker, now the joints have to carry more of the force. The joints carry more of the force, more likely to give you these issues. So my symptoms blew up then. And when the surgeon went in, he said that, like, it was way worse than the imaging too. He's like, it was the disc had healed to the nerve, which means it had been a little while since it had gone, and it had tried to heal, and it stuck itself to the nerve, and he had to slowly cut it off the nerve, which he didn't make it sound like a big deal. I talked to other doctors after, like, that's crazy. Like, that most surgeons won't even touch that.
So then,
so I got really lucky.
In some ways, like, I don't mean to say, like, oh, we're happy that COVID happened, but is it almost like, for you individually, is it almost a good thing? Are you almost grateful that COVID did happen and you were forced to sort of just do nothing for a little bit, or else maybe you never would have found out about this? Like, do you kind of look at it that way, or not really?
No, not really. 'Cause, I mean, the reality is, I'm not going to be able to just fight and go hard till I'm dead, like, till I'm old. So eventually it would have caught up with me. I think if COVID didn't happen, I probably would have been able to put it off. I wouldn't have known for longer, because I would have stayed fit and stayed strong. And I don't think I would have noticed until it probably would have come on slower, maybe, or maybe even not come up at all until I kind of retired or had another injury that stopped me from training super hard. Because, like, I mean, I felt good going into the fight, like, or getting ready for Alex in last April. Like, everything was going fine there, and it was really, like, there was nothing when I came back after that. There was nothing for 2 months. Like, I didn't get hit. I didn't do it. Like, I didn't wrestle. Literally nothing happened for 2 months, and these symptoms blew up. So I think it's a pretty good indicator that, fitness and movement is really important in injury management. I mean, we already knew that, but it's just, reinforces that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my only point is that, like, for me, as someone, like, thinking about your situation, it's tough to believe that in those three fights in 2019, you were at 100%, even if you felt like it, just because clearly, like, your neck was injured, even if maybe the symptoms didn't come up, and now you're able to, fix that. But I don't,
It's
maybe it,
yeah. I mean, you got to look at fighters like, is any fighter ever 100%?
no.
No, never
Yeah.
really, right? So, I mean, fighting is so, one of the great things about fighting is it's, there's so many variables within it, and your mental capacity is so much more important than that of a lot of other sports. Like, I use the comparison of sprinting. Well, there's only a few things in sprinting, right? It's a very athletic-driven sport, genetic-driven sport. Like, how hard can your leg hit the ground? What's your stride length? How fast you can turn that over? Like, I mean, no matter what I did, if Usain Bolt never trained a day in his life, he ate like crap. I did everything right. I trained as hard as I could to be the best sprinter in the world. He would come out of the gate and beat me every single time without even trying, because there's just certain genetic gifts that he has that I'll never have. With him fighting, though, there's so many choices and so many options, and then your ability to control, like the fact that you could get very badly hurt, so all of a sudden stresses are much higher, and it's really your ability. I mean, obviously you want to be in the best shape you can be, and have your body as your tool, but really it's the decisions you make in the fight that are the most important thing, because it doesn't matter how fit, how strong, how healthy you are. If you make the wrong decisions, you're going to lose.
Um, two-part question. When did the surgery actually happen, and how long after the surgery did you start feeling better and start feeling like, hey, it's almost ready or almost time to get back into the cage?
Oh, so I mean, the surgery was great. Like, I woke up from the surgery and my pain was gone.
Wow.
Like it's amazing, because what they do in the surgery is they go in and they take that damaged disc out. So it's called decompressing. So the thing that was pushing on my nerve, giving me the symptoms, is not there anymore. So my pain was gone. Now there is lasting nerve damage. Like, my fingers still have some numbness in them, and there's weakness that it took time to sort of come back, but that was just rehab work, right? Like, just like building any strength. I want anything to get stronger, I basically had to start from a deficit and work my way back up. And it was just waiting. The only thing you got to wait for is the incision, because they go through your throat, but that's only a couple weeks. But the disc they put into the bone has to heal. The bone has to heal around the disc and really grip tight. So that maybe make 3 months to do any kind of contact training. But after 30 days, I was able to start doing like strength training and running,
Right.
hitting pads and that kind of stuff. And at 3 months, I was allowed to start some grappling. And it's like, obviously don't just go 100% right away, but ease into it for a month. And at 4 months, he said, okay, you start doing some striking again, ease into it. And about, 4.5, 5 months, everything felt good. He's like, okay, I want you to go 100%, test it, and if it feels good, you can take a fight. So that's about the point. It was in the middle of the summer, July or August. I can't remember the exact time of the surgery,
Okay.
but that I got the surgery, and then in January I came to Vegas and just hit the ground running, and I've been going hard ever since.
Obviously, neck injuries are no joke, nothing to sort of, take lightly. Did you ever, like, when you were sort of at your worst, like during COVID, when you could barely do anything, as you were talking about, like, did you ever get to a point where it's like, why fight anymore? Like, did you ever have those thoughts, even if it was just like a mental hurdle that you had to get past? Like, did you kind of have that at all?
Well, I mean, I'm pretty mentally strong. I understand I understand not to worry about something until you kind of chase the end. So once I got the MRI back, and it looked like I was probably going to need surgery, but I still wanted to try and rehab it. There was no retirement wasn't ever kind of in my head. I called my manager right away and said, hey, this stuff I'm going to let you know. But the first thing I want to let you know is that, like, retirement's not even a word I know right now. Like, right now, my job is just rehab, recovery, and figuring out how to get back to here. So I never got to a point where I was chasing any, like, the first dead end was rehab wasn't working, so then surgery was the next option. I didn't even have the thought that it was manned over until I tried the surgery, because you don't want to worry about something that might never happen, right? It's kind of like worrying about a car accident that you're never in. Like obviously, when you drive, you're shoulder checking, you're wearing your seatbelt, you're careful, but you can't overly worry every time you get in a car. Otherwise, you're just going to be worried all the time. So for me, it was like, well, I haven't chased this recovery down to the very end yet, and there's several options that I can go through. And so I was very optimistic and hopeful, and I just focused on the path to get better and get back in the cage.
Is there one thing in particular you feel like you learned about yourself over the past year and a half or so?
Yeah, definitely. So just more confidence in what I've already known about myself. Like, I've as you get older, you get wiser, and going through this whole process, I've had a lot of time to think back about my career and about the mentality and how I've gone into things and how I've thought and how I've mentally prepared. I've had a lot more time in my own mind, I guess you will. So I've just reinforced the good thoughts, and I've gotten rid of the bad ones. Like, people always say, "Oh, is your glass half full? Is your glass half empty?" And I'm like, well, what are we drinking, right? Like, it doesn't really matter. Like, are we drinking something that I want to drink? Is it a nice, half full glass of beer, or half empty glass of beer is different than a half full glass of gasoline, or a half empty. I hope that glass of gasoline, if I have to drink, is half empty, not half full. So it's all about perception and mindset, and I've just really worked on mentally sharpening all those things up, and I feel so confident, so prepared for whatever is ahead of me.
And as you said, I mean, this year has been a roller coaster just with the injury, with COVID, you became a dad, everything. I mean, so much has gone on in your life. Can you even put into words what it's like to be 8 days away from your first fight since September 2019?
Yeah, it's just business as usual, I try not to put anything on a pedestal. You start doing that, and you put more pressure on yourself. It's just, okay, now I get to do what I love to do. I'm so happy to be able to do it, and I just can't wait to, win, lose, or draw. I'm living the dream right now. I think I have the best job in the world. At least for me, it's the best job in the world, and I'm super excited to just be able to go do what I love to do.
Obviously, I mean, Canadian MMA fans were very familiar with you before the UFC, but that win over Michelle Pereira, just given everything that went into it, like a short notice, up a weight class, Pereira was a big favorite. That felt like your breakthrough moment in the UFC. And everybody, I mean, you remember this, everybody wanted to talk to you after it. You're this new star almost, and to lose that momentum, like, was
I know.
that disappointing? And or do you kind of look at this fight as like you'll be able to remind everybody why they were so excited about you a year and a half ago?
Well, definitely sucks to lose momentum. That I definitely thought about that, but at the same time, there's always another opportunity. There's always setbacks in this game. It's just kind of like, can't change the past. It's kind of like if you lose a fight, it sucks, and I've seen guys just dwell on it and it ruins them. It just completely crushes them. They retire. They can't handle it. It's like, you can't do anything about it. It's happened. Like, all you can do is look at it and learn from it and be like, hey, why did it happen? What can I do to try and make sure it doesn't happen again, or at least doesn't happen again for the same reasons that happened then? And so I really try and just look at it that way. And, it doesn't make losing any easier, but it definitely makes you become better out of it.
Yeah. As you said, I mean, you didn't really feel like your performances in 2019 were tarnished at all by the neck injury that you weren't really aware about. But is there any chance that you will just perform a little bit better now that the surgery is over and now that you know that that's not an issue? Or, I mean, you didn't know before, but now that you know that issue isn't, can't be there,
Yeah, I mean, very possibly. I will say that sometimes having a little time away reinvigorates you a bit. And I'm always motivated. I'm always hungry. But, becoming a dad obviously probably plays a contributing factor in that as well. But I just felt I'm still so excited to go to training every day. So, like, for me, it's almost right now I'm so close that I'm stopping some training sessions, and it's killing me. Like, I want to go to every single one. I want to learn more. I want to grow. So in some aspects, I may have accelerated my my improvements over the last couple of months just because of having that time off, right? Like it's made me grow hungrier for it.
For sure. Well, Tristan, thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it, and best of luck to you next weekend.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks for
Awesome.
talking.